Well, it has been one wild 2024, and obviously, when looking at 2024, there have been plenty of ups, there have been plenty of downs, but obviously, we're going to be looking at a very positive thing that came about last year. One of which is definitely something that I've grown very, very attached to, and ultimately, I will admit I kind of wish I paid more attention to. Well, because of what it came about. Obviously, if you have seen the thumbnail of this video, it means that you know that we're about to be talking about probably one of the more interesting years for video game characters around, so to speak. A video game character who has gotten newfound love from like new fans, old fans, so on and so forth. I am Axel Stelly, and in this video we are going to look at two aspects that made this year very amazing for the character that we're about to talk about today, which is Shadow the Hedgehog. I am Axel Stanley, and of course we are going to take a look at the Shadow the Hedgehog, who has had quite an amazing year. And admittedly, I have thought of adding more stuff to it, like from how what the slogan of Fearless became a thing, but obviously, looking at the time frame of what things are right now, I don't think I need another year to try and develop a film for it. So we're just going to look at two aspects of what that made Shadow the Hedgehog a pretty big deal. But first, before I do that, I am actually going to explain to you what makes Shadow, in my mind, the most amazing character. Well, before continuing forward, I do believe it is important that we talk about the man, the myth, the very created one himself, Shadow. For those who are unaware of Shadow and how he came to be, Shadow the Hedgehog was something that was created on a space station known as the space colony Arg. Admittedly, I will not get into too much detail because I highly recommend you look at this guy's character and see what he is about. However, I will definitely say that the Shadow's introduction to the franchise, nothing short but amazing, if anything at all. And of course, since his introduction to Sonic Adventure 2, he has become quite a mainstay within the franchise. Of course, I myself would consider myself to be a fan of Shadow the Hedgehog in every thing that he seems to be in. Well, except for maybe Sonic X, because in my opinion, Sonic X is just not that franchise I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Well, that and Sonic Underground, but obviously I discuss for another time if I ever feel like talking about it. And in my humble opinion, I actually would consider Shadow to be the ultimate rival to Sonic the Hedgehog for more or less lore-based reasons that we have nowadays. That being said, though, Shadow the Hedgehog came at a interesting part of my life. Like I've said, Shadow the Hedgehog came around in Sonic Adventure 2, and I was a small kid with a game who eventually, for Christmas, got a GameCube, and along with it came Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And since then, I would say that Shadow has been an interesting part of my life, albeit not some would consider obsessive, but intrigued in a way. Granted, I am definitely more likely to eat those words way down the future because, as it turns out, I became an absolute simp for Sonic the Hedgehog and the entire franchise. So have that of which you will. But in the case of Shadow the Hedgehog, I definitely like to say it is kind of interesting that someone of his story actually would kind of resonate with me. And what Shadow goes through personally, I kind of felt more or less attached to because of how things were going around in my household, so to speak. Obviously, I love Shadow as a character. I get love him for the story reasons that we got. But of course, enough about me and the story. Let's get into it. But spoilers, by the way, for both Sonic X Shadow Generations, and of course, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 that came out last year. Speaking of spoiling, I am also going to give thoughts on the Dark Beginnings animated series that was used to promote Sonic X Shadow Generations. That's quite a mouthful to say anyway. And of course, this is all basically my opinion. So with that being said, before looking at the game, let's look at the animated series. Now, this short animated series is separated into like 3 different parts, and a good chunk of them do revolve around flashbacks, or I guess in some cases, fake flashbacks, so to speak. Granted, some are definitely real in a sense, and what this short animated series is supposed to emphasize the importance of what Maria meant to Shadow, while also solidifying that Shadow does have a very interesting dark heritage as it is. Of course, if it wasn't dark enough already. Yeah, there were definitely plenty of amazing animated spots that are just so action-packed and whatnot. Heck, I even like the interesting callback to what the general, now being known as Abraham Towers, so hey, maybe human characters can be interesting. I also do find it interesting that it adds elements that are definitely confirming some of the things that some theorists around the Sonic community have basically confirmed. Like Emerald was kind of a part of everything that was going down in the Space Colony arc. The black aliens. And honestly, for those who are definitely into the lore of this universe, they're eating good today. Especially those who managed to nab a Gerald Robotnik journal, which I do have a copy of, personally. And man, it is something else. But going back to the animated, the short series for a moment, there is definitely a lot of beautiful animation being thrown out there. And ultimately, now fans like myself are now kind of hoping that, hey, maybe we can get more animated series like these for maybe a future Sonic animated project. But of course, we'll definitely take what we can get, and if something else does come, then hey, again, we'll be eating good. So, with that being said, let's get into the game that the series was made for. Sonic X Shadow Generations, an obvious remake of Sonic Generations with a little bit of an interesting dark twist. So yeah, this has the inclusion of Shadow, which is very, very interesting to say the least. And not only that, it has quite an interesting story that I will admit I could not have expected to be more mature than it already is. If I haven't emphasized it enough yet, there are going to be spoilers for both this game and what I will be talking about next. So, with this game, I will mostly refer to the Shadow Generations part of the game, because the Sonic Generations part of it is mostly the same. But so the story behind the Shadow Generations part of the story is basically Shadow is on the Space Colony arc, reliving some memories. We get some pretty sweet, wholesome ones, but in comes the return of Black Doom. And let's just say, he is using the time anomaly aspect of what has been going on from from the Generations storyline to take advantage of what is coming. Along the way, we do get other newer characters like Omega, Rouge, Big the Cats, and we also get to, take a look at stages that have been remastered in some ways. Some which fans definitely enjoy, some might definitely did not like very much, but I like it what we got personally. As the story progresses, Shadow then finds also Maria and Gerald Robotnik, two individuals from Shadow's past that he lost. And this does bring up an interesting conflict within Shadow, because for so long Shadow has not seen Gerald Robotnik or Maria, and just seeing Maria again, it just kind of hurts the boy in a way. And of course, the feelings do intensify as the series goes even more so. But unfortunately, with the limited resources I have and don't have, but I cannot show off what I want to show off, but rather try to explain it as best I can with varying results. In the meantime, I definitely would like to turn the attention to the boss fights, or rather the 4 that we got. Personally, Mephiles is kind of bottom tier when it comes to boss fights, but to be fair, it is trying to use the Doom Morph, and it does a job, but not that the greatest in my opinion. Not the worst, but still. There is Metal Overlord, which utilizes the Doom Surf a lot. Again, don't hate it, it's just, I don't know, I kinda will admit I was fumbling around with Doom Surf until I eventually got the hang of it. However, we'll probably get my very favorite boss of all time, just because of the history behind this boss in particular, the Bio Lizard. And for those who do not know, Bio Lizard is basically the older brother of Shadow, in a way. And what this game does to the Bio Lizard, I swear it ramps up to 11. And again, because of my limiting resources, I cannot even show you the soundtrack to supporting me, which in my opinion is an absolute banger, where especially this game's version of it, because not only does it slap hard, but the lyrics, I am just going to recommend that you just listen to it, supporting me. And if you can find the lyrical version of the song, I definitely would recommend listening to it, especially that. And of course, you have the final boss, which should be no surprise if you paid attention. The final boss that I am referring to, which is being built up to within the story, which would be Devil Doom. And let me just say, that is how you do a boss. Multiple phases, utilizing all abilities that you have to learn in the game, and it was definitely a boss that kind of made me want to rip my nuts off, but eventually get around to it. And here's actually the interesting thing I felt kind of gathered when going into the boss fight. Shadow doesn't need his super form when going against Devil Doom this time, which kind of makes it interesting, at least when I thought about it. Though, to be fair, throughout the majority of the game, you were using Doom powers, which is an amazing addition to the game, and I kind of have a feeling that they're not going to bring those back, because, well, Shadow kind of rejects it in the end. But I can definitely respect that, because Shadow is his own man, and it just makes sense, I guess. And I trust the writing because of what we got so far. Sure. Of course, so I definitely would be reluctant to also say that the ending of the game, it made me weep like a child. Yes, I am a grown adult who is definitely proud to admit that a grown man cried at the end of this game. Because at the end of the game, Shadow makes the hardest choice ever, and basically says goodbye to Joe, Robotnik, and Maria for the last time. And when the tears hit start being shed, and one of those tears lands on Rouge's flying face. Rouge is still in the game. But it really struck a chord with me in so many ways that wow. What I maybe it's just me and my ability to kinda sorta understand where characters are coming from, but if that is not the 5 stages of grief fit into one game, I don't know what is. Side tangent for a moment, and I promise it'll be a quick one. How come everyone's pairing Rouge up with Shadow in the fandom? Shadow and Rouge kind of make more sense since they do have a little bit of history with each other. Where, I mean, sure, I get there's an appeal for opposites attract, but come on, be real with me here. Okay, side tangent over. So, I cannot recommend for those who will want to pick up something that is basically a remake of Sonic Generations with a little bit of Shadow the Hedgehog flavor to it. I definitely would recommend at least giving it a playthrough, but because it is quite an experience to play. The remade stages are good, the music is slapping, the bosses absolutely kick things up a notch, and of course, the story is golden. Now, enough about praising the game, let's take a look at the movie. Sonic the Hedgehog 3, probably one of the biggest the movies I've seen all year. And admittedly, fun fact about myself, I have only seen Deadpool and Wolverine this year, I have seen Terrifier 3 this year, and I have seen this movie this year. And I am gonna get this out of the way, for those who are curious, no, I am not going to see Mufasa, nor do I have any interest whatsoever. Disney is a dumpster fire, and I will not subject myself to any more of their content. If you know, you know. So, now that I've made myself a very small enemy of Disney, that probably wouldn't matter anyways. Spoilers. I feel like I had to say this again. Spoilers for the movie. Right out of the gate, we are we'll put the way up front with the post-star credit scene taking place on Prison Island. Shadow gets reawakened, dismantles the guards, and Shadow is basically using his hover shoes and flies right out of Prison Island. After that, we do get a pretty nice montage of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles hanging out with the Donut Lord and Pretzel Lady. Yes, I am going to refer to them as that for the remainder of this video. But I definitely consider them to be the most tolerable of humans, other than other characters that we will definitely meet in the film as well. But I do also want to point out right out of the gate before I do say anything else. Keanu Reeves as Shadow the Hedgehog. I just love it. Like everything about this Shadow, what just also screams a little bit of John Wick in there. I don't know how they managed to do it, but they basically made the Shadow a complete John Wick, but if he was a black fluffy hedgehog. And of course, it's not too long that we get to see GUN come by and pick up Sonic and Tails and Knuckles to go over to Tokyo, Japan, to stop Shadow. And not too long after, we get a couple of amazing references that are related to Sonic Adventure 2. And lo and behold, we are thrown right into the action because this movie actually does not waste any time on the action. And that is actually kind of cool. I actually very much like that a lot. And of course, in the middle of the action-packed first act of pure action, Shadow not only gets his motorcycle, but he also gets a gun. And weirdly enough, me and my friends that saw this movie, we kind of lost our minds when that happened. Of course, in the attempt to try to catch Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic and Shadow basically caused a huge EMP burst, which is sort of similar to how they did it in the first movie, but it just hits a good chunk of Japan, thankfully. And unfortunately, Shadow gets away, and we then get put into another amazing scene that kind of is another amazing huge reference that I fully wish Japan would take advantage of, because wouldn't it be nice to have a Shadow Garden in Tokyo? Well, I would definitely visit that, and it would be my go-to cafe if I were to visit it. But then, of course, some things that happen with, weirdly enough, Eggman's robots coming into play, which just strangely enough seems to be not in Eggman's control per se. As a guy clad in black biker gear, which we then learn is Agent Stone. Shadow Garden implodes, so we get some nice references to other movies here and there, where I am actually kind of surprised that they did not announce Ryan Reynolds to be in a future installment, but I would very much like that. Granted, that's probably something I probably should say in the very near end of the film, but oh well, make of that what you will. And of course, but if I did not outright just said it plainly enough, but Jim Carrey does return as Dr. Robotnik, or in this case, Ivo Robotnik, if you've paid attention. And of course, just seeing Eggman go full Eggman, which means that he has got a big round belly. And let me tell you, oh man, no, I was not ready for it, and Jim Carrey practically steals the show at least a good chunk of the time. It is within this point, however, that now I think it might be time for me to mention Shadow's flashbacks. And within Shadow's flashbacks, we get to see him interact with Maria, with quite an amazing actress who plays the character pretty well enough. Granted, I was a little taken aback by the changes that they've had to make to accommodate the film, but I really didn't mind it as much. While I do apologize that I do not remember the actress's name, I definitely have to give a huge round of applause for giving Maria a good character. And ultimately, being the light to Shadow's dark, tormented soul. While I won't go over all the details related to the flashbacks of how Shadow came to Earth, I will definitely say their approach also very interesting, which might have some interesting implications if looked through it more thoroughly. But overall, we do get to see how Maria perished, which, yes, there were definitely those who were looking forward to seeing how it would play out, and it does it very tastefully, I will definitely say on the matter. getting back to the main plot of things, apparently there were two keys that were needed to unlock some kind of powerful weapon. But before going into that, Dr. Robotnik teams up with Sonic and his friends to go to what is essentially the Ark, or at least this movie's version of the Ark, which is basically an underground top secret facility. And one we definitely see Shadow pick off Knuckles, Tails, Agent Stone, and Sonic. Meanwhile, Dr. Robotnik reunites it with his long grandfather, which it is a sight to behold because Gerald Robotnik is also played by Jim Carrey, and it is wow. I do not know how they've done it because I am definitely not going to claim to be a man who knows how to make movies. I mean, just look at my videos. They are probably as bare bones to editing as one can get. So with the one key that was once off of that, the one gun informant commander where that Sonic Kill picked up is now in the hands of Shadow and the Robotniks. And of course, basically used a black hole to not only destroy the base, but also hopefully get off Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Which thankfully, due to a trick shot, they get used one of their rings to teleport themselves out of there. So eventually, they come back home to the home of Donald Lord and Pretzely, and ask for their assistance to get into the London base of Gun. Which does have some hijinks that are both kind of funny, not funny, but not bad. They're not bad enough to make me cringe, because I kind of know going into this that human characters are going to be fake. It does become a race for the other key though, as the Robotniks and Shadow make their way to one as well. Granted, Shadow just hangs behind on the giant robot crab with a stone while watching some interesting Mexican, I don't even know what to call it, probably because I'm a little tad uncultured. But getting back into the thick of things, I am actually kind of once again surprised that they were able to pull this off with both Robotniks doing what is essentially a bizarre dance through the laser room. I mean, it definitely got some chuckles out of me, yeah, for sure. Eventually, after all the hijinks that are being done from either Sonic's team or the Robotnik team or Gun's team, it eventually falls into the hands of Donald Lord, and he definitely took a wrong turn because he encounters Shadow, and while Donald Lord was trying to, almost forgot, technically Donald Lord was disguised as the, I guess, now dead Gun Commander, which Shadow thought that it was really him, and so he basically does a one punch to what Donald Lord said, just possibly get very much could have killed him, sort of thing. Being nonchalant about aside, the Eclipse can does take off, and it becomes in space, or goes to space. So now what comes to what the part of the movie where Sonic is completely feels like he's out of options and now needs the Master Emerald. Knuckles tries to protest against this because it should not be used for vengeance, which definitely takes an interesting sense of maturity between the characters. Because it definitely shows that all of these characters have some sense of maturity and understanding that hey, vengeance shouldn't be used to what be X, Y, and Z, that sort of thing. Or at least it shouldn't be a huge motivating factor. So eventually, Sonic does get his hands on the Master Emerald, goes supersonic, Yeah, it is also where General Robotnik reveals his plans to not only wipe out the gun, but also Earth. Whereas Ivo had a different plan, which is basically take over Earth. Which does start an interesting thing that will happen on the Eclipse canon. Meanwhile, sorry, Sonic as Super Sonic goes to the space colony Ark, takes on Shadow, which Shadow then returns the favor by knocking the Super Sonic out of Sonic, which is definitely going to be interesting, having to look at the power scaling between the two. But then we get the awesome Super Sonic versus Super Shadow fight. And of course, let me just say, watching this fight in theaters, it felt like I was watching Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods all over again. In theaters, so to speak. Yeah, like they were all over Earth. They were going through monuments, they were going through a whole lot of stuff on Earth. And the fight, there are just no... I mean, I can't exactly describe it without referring to like Dragon Ball Z, because that's kind of what it kind of is in a way. I'm not even mad about that, because I like Dragon Ball Z and I like this movie too. But ultimately it does end with them going on the moon. Sonic is about to consider taking Shadow's life until he remembers the Lord's words about the good chunk of like the beginning of the movie. Yeah. Eventually, Sonic and Shadow reconcile on the moon, which kind of further proves that they both can breathe in space, if it wasn't already. Yeah, thank you for letting my voice breathe in space and not the needing the necessary oxygen to breathe in space, because that actually would hurt my brain to think about. The Sonic and Shadow would decide to team up, go Super Sonic and Super Shadow, and take on the Eclipse cannon and stop it from destroying Earth. While I am a little sad that there is no Bio-Lizard to fight in this movie, yeah, but then again, I'm not sure how a live-action adaptation of the Bio-Lizard would be, because I imagine it would probably be horrifying. But I can't argue, because the action itself pretty good. Meanwhile, the Robotniks are having a fight on the Ark, basically going toe-to-toe with each other, and to make a long story short, the General Robotnik gets basically gets bug zapped away of this movie. Kind of a cop-out, but at the same time, I don't think Jim Carrey would want to play as two characters in the same movie for much longer than he needs to be, especially if by chance he does show up in later adaptations. So, unfortunately, they cannot exactly steer a course of where the giant planet-destroying laser is going to go, so they have to course correct it. And with combined efforts of Robotnik, Tails and Knuckles, Super Sonic and Super Shadow, they redirect the Eclipse cannon laser to not hit the Earth, but they do cut a good chunk of the moon, which some of the audience members have definitely requoted the snap cube, but if you will. And it definitely gave us a chuckle, knowing that some of the audience was basically like, yep, they saw that fan dub before going into this movie. However, the Ark is going to be ready to blow, so they kind of had to push the Eclipse cannon away from Earth as much as they can. Sonic eventually starts to lose his strength or whatever, where it becomes out of Supersonic. Tails and Knuckles descend to Earth to catch Sonic from falling in a re-entry. And then eventually the Eclipse cannon blows up, taking Dr. Robotnik and Shadow with it. And uh, about not too long ago, I did say that if Jim Carrey was to return for like further adaptations for this movie franchise, and to be honest, I kinda want Dr. Robotnik's journey to end here because he went out on a high note, and honestly, I don't see how we can top that. No offense to Jim Carrey, you had a good run, but maybe this is like a good stopping point. But that's just my humble opinion, and if they can somehow do a good job explaining how Dr. Robotnik would survive that, well, okay, I'll probably might. And of course, we reach the end of the movie where Donald Lord is alright. He's just got a broken arm, or something like that. And Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles go on being the bestest of friends via a race. And then we get to the post-credit scenes. The first one that I am definitely hyped about, especially, is that Sonic kind of overshot and made it all the way to New York. I do not know how you can overshot it that much, but hey, that's Sonic. I wouldn't be surprised if he managed to overshoot anywhere. But then it's a reveal that we've got a robot problem, a Metal Sonic type of problem. And it wouldn't be just one that gets revealed, but rather a small a small militia of them. But lo and behold, we get revealed of one of the new characters that are coming into the next installment, if it hadn't been obvious already. Amy Rose, and let's just say I really like the way she looks. I mean, granted, we've only seen her via her cloak, which means we've only seen snippets of her hands, her head, and we got to see the Pico Hammer, but it definitely looks promising, and I'm looking forward to seeing who voices Amy. The other post-credit scene that I am also especially excited for is that Shadow, I guess I failed to mention, while pushing the Eclipse Canada away from Earth, Shadow uses inhibitor rings. So in this thing, Shadow picks up one of his inhibitor rings, showing that Shadow is very much alive, and is probably going to be in the fourth movie. Again, also very excited for it, just because, one, it's Keanu Reeves, and two, it's Shadow the Hedgehog. So my overall thoughts of the film are just simply that, well, I really don't have much to complain about, and it's kind of hard to sound like it and be not biased as a Sonic fan, because I just can't find much to complain about. And I guess by the time this movie roll around, I guess I was used to the setting that this continuity is set in, so I guess I have my expectations set to a certain way. Yeah, but like I said, I did cringe a little bit here and there, but obviously, this is basically me gushing about an amazing movie, and I gotta say, this movie is one heck of a way to end the year of Shadow the Hedgehog, if it ever was one. Like, this movie was a grand Mona Lisa to Shadow's monument when it came to what the year of Shadow, in its the highest potency. So all in all, I definitely would say that this movie is like a straight 9 out of 10. No what if, ands, or buts about it. And with that, I have just got done talking about the two big factors of what made the year of Shadow the Hedgehog. It's the amazing, the biggest video game character word thing. I apologize, I don't even know what to call it. Maybe there is a way to say it, but maybe I'm just a little off, so to speak. But when it comes to video game characters, Sega did an amazing job on making the year of Shadow as amazing as it did. Granted, I know I've only covered the video game and the movie, and that there's a whole lot more to it, but that there's only so much I can put into this one video without me sounding like a maniac, and I imagine this video would definitely take longer than it needs to. And unfortunately, I am someone who is kind of busy with the time, doesn't really have much time to myself, and so on. So, with that being said, that I really love Shadow, and I'm hoping that in this upcoming year, where we get something that else that Sega might have cooking. Granted, I know what people, that fans of the Sonic community are now wanting a year of Silver the Hedgehog. And honestly, I could definitely see their point in wanting something like that. But me personally, I kinda would prefer a year of Tales of Fox, because in my honest opinion, Tails could use a little bit more rare love nowadays. I mean, he's Sonic's best friend, for crying out loud. Come on. I mean, granted, Tails does have a thing on, like, on the official Sonic YouTube channel, or Sega, one of the two, called Tails Tube, and I do find that quite adorable. And I'm actually kind of sad that I never mentioned the Twitter word takeover that Sonic and Shadow did, which kind of was kind of a nice touch as well. In preparations for Sonic X Shadow Generation. Oh wait, it was after. Never mind. But granted, I do not anticipate that I'll be making more content relating to this, because, like I said, I barely have time for myself anymore, so it's kind of an amazement that I managed to scrunch up this video together with everything that I have just said, and with everything going as such. Speaking of, thank you for reaching this point in the video, and let me just simply get this off my chest for a moment. Like I've said, I have been busy, but I really want to get back into this. I just haven't exactly found my spark of inspiration. Like, I may have suffered burnout one too many times, and like, it's gotten to the point where, like, I don't know what kind of content I would even make nowadays. But I guess in this case, it's just make whatever comes to mind, I guess. So, but because I have changed shit differently, I have thought about rebranding myself as a VTuber, but even then, I don't know how that would work out. And if I do release other types of content that are kind of like what-if-esque, I might just divert myself and just scrap the whole what-if shtick altogether and just make whatever comes to mind. Whether it's probably a fanfic that I came up with, or maybe talk about something else. Then maybe if I eventually get that better recording equipment or live stream equipment, I could probably do some gameplay videos. I've been wanting to do that forever, but I never could afford it. Because I am a broke man, and they can't really afford to do much of anything. That being said, though, again, I very much thank you for being around for as long as you have, and to those who are still subbed to me after all this time, I have to wonder, what the heck is pulling you to stay subscribed to my channel? Well, like, were you expecting me to release a magnum opus or something? Because if so, I hate to be that one guy and say that I might disappoint you someday, and my magnum opus is probably not going to be what you think it is. Granted, I doubt I'll ever have a magnum opus, but I digress. Alright, with that being said, though, thank you guys for sticking around, and who knows, maybe someday I'll be able to pick up the journey again, and maybe I'll see you in the next one. See ya, guys.